JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, October 27th, 326 on this fine afternoon talk. Quick about the market, some names I'm looking at, go from there. All-time highs. S&P is up 1%, a little over 1%. Nasdaq's up about 1.7%. Small caps soaring. Bitcoin soaring. Gold faltering. But anyway, market's all-time highs. Funny reading the headlines this afternoon, trying to find, trying to explain today's rally to all-time highs, and it's well, one of them was like where the current market's in a Goldilocks environment, and another one is the good news keeps coming. And to me, I mean, it doesn't feel like much has changed over the last couple days, right? It's just a matter of how the market is. If the market had sold off, it'd be a different tune being sung by everybody. But not much in the way of catalyst. We had the CPI data Friday. Then now we're going to get into the earnings, more earnings, right? So we'll have the five of the Mag 7 reporting. We have Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Apple. So three of them report Wednesday after close, and then the other two on Thursday. And then we have the Fed, right? So Wednesday, 2 o'clock, we'll have the statement come out, and then the 2:30 presser. So, I mean, what's going to derail the market rally? To me, I like, I talk about hating the gaps. Maybe a little more of a pull today, and then a bounce. But I mean, since the open, we got up 683. We had a little dip at 10 o'clock, and it's been kind of like a slow chop at all-time highs for the rest of the day. So, I guess if there's a scenario where we don't have a big pull at the open and fill the gap and then rally, to have a scenario where we chop around a tight range, I guess that's the better one of the better outcomes here. So good stuff. I talked about possible resistance. I thought 685 into the Fed. We're here 684. So maybe blue sky breakout continues tomorrow, and we're at 690s on the SPY. Can't rule anything out. I try to think about some of the scenarios, right? And back in April, it's like I would. Some of my thoughts is like, okay, if we didn't have the tariff situation, we didn't have Liberation Day, let's say, well, I just try and think of different scenarios. I'm like, if you rewind from today all the way back to April and think if we didn't have the Liberation Day, where would the market be, right? Would the economy be showing great, the great data and all that fun stuff? So it's kind of like, I always try to think the what if. I mean, what if doesn't matter, right? This is what we have. This is the reality. So, but remarkable stuff. All right. So, outside of the earnings, the Fed, just some individual names I talk about, but in regards to the market, 685, and then if we do get some dips, I talked about that upper Bollinger Band, 677.95 or so. That'd be kind of an area you want to see that hold. All right, and that's that. All right, so now just quick on some individual names. First, I'll just talk about the ones I closed out today. So I got those Dell strikes on Friday. Again, I was talking about on the rant this morning, that 175 level from May of 2024. It still hasn't eclipsed that level. Remarkable, considering all the other AI related stuff that has gone bonkers since then. And one of the names you think be kind of front and center that should benefit from everything going on would be a Dell, but unfortunately, for some reason, it just can't get going. And I talked about the backlog this morning, right? It was 4 billion back when it was 175 in May 2024, and now it's 14 billion of backlog. Mind you, it's a company that does, I don't know what the revenues were. It's close to, maybe it does $80 billion in revenues on a yearly basis. So, I mean, just to see it not break out, just kind of boggles my mind. So that's why you see me continue to play calls, well, at least recently too, but a couple months ago. But anyway, needless to say, this morning I was hoping for follow through, and it looked great overnight. It was like 163, 164. I thought, okay, the call's going to be close to a double. I'll lock some in, ride the rest. And then sure enough, it opens, fizzles, and the option market didn't open right away. But then unfortunately, it's 161, 162, getting near 162, just can't break through. And then you look at the option premiums, and they're flat and red despite the move up. So disappointing. And then my thought is, if it doesn't have any follow through tomorrow, the call's going to get cut in half. So I didn't want to be in a spot where I lose money on the call, so I closed them out for a very small loss. I'll continue to look for opportunities to play for upside. Just frustrating. Use that analogy. It's like I can be watching Dell, and it'll be up 3% one day, and the underlying calls will be up 50%, right? But if I'm in Dell and I'm into calls, and the stock is up 3%, the calls will be flat. It's just how it seems the market works sometimes. So frustrating. The premium game on options, one of the more frustrating things, right? Because if you don't have control over it, right? There's only things you can control. One of the things you can control is being either being in a position or not being in a position. So I'd rather sit and watch better opportunities. Of course, Dell has just spiked the dollar while I'm talking here. All right, so that's Dell. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. Boom. Okay. And then this morning too, so part of the plan this week is possibly looking for some names for premium build into earnings, and then if you get the premium bill, lock them in, cover costs, ride the rest into earnings. We have both Reddit and Roku report Thursday after the close. So I look at Reddit, and when I see Reddit, I think it's $300 stock before the year is out. So on that premise, I think this earnings season this quarter that they report Thursday, maybe it's the spark that finally sends it. Um, sure enough, it's gapping around 220 overnight, and then this morning, and then I'm watching it's 221, 222 after the open. I was looking at the 300 strikes last week. I was looking at it this morning. I'm like, let me just get into these because if it gets into the 235, 240 range in the next day or two, those calls are gonna be up 100%. I'll be able to lock some in, cover costs, ride the rest into earnings. Sure enough, hits the wall, gets up to 225 or so, and then just can't break out, and then it just starts finding some pressure. And then, about 9:45 goes from 221 all the way down to 217. Didn't want to be in a spot similarly where it just dips, maybe gets under 210. Those premiums get crushed. So lock those in for a small loss. I'll continue to look for opportunities between tomorrow and Wednesday, and maybe even Thursday morning to get some premium build into earnings. Because to me, if you look at Reddit, and I don't know why I don't have my chart up here, but it finally broke out of that October consolidation. So the entire month of October into Friday, it was stuck in this trading range up from 211 to 200, or maybe it's actually 194. So, 190, 190, and 194 besides that little blip back on October 17th, and then finally broke out. So unfortunately, it's breaking out when the premiums are inflated because of earnings. I wish this happened last week because then the premiums would be less expensive, play for a breakout. It's sitting here at 218. It's up 2%. Even being up 2%, the calls are in the red. So I'll continue to look for opportunities to play Reddit. Same with Roku. And, I was looking possibly to trade Roku for premium build, but the part of the premium build is if the options don't move up in lockstep, then it's not a fun game to trade. But the difference between Reddit and Roku is the premiums are actually creeping into the calls on Roku. I was looking maybe to 120. So, those are 71 by 80. They're actually up 20% this morning, since the morning. Maybe a name I'll look tomorrow. But those were the two names I tried to do for those are two names I'm looking to do premium build on. So names I'll revisit tomorrow. And then gold, right? So the gold story, it's down here at 4,000. I look at gold through I wouldn't say my bear goggles, but my skeptical goggles, I guess you would call them. Been holding those dust calls, the 13s, added those 14s. I added the GL calls last week, and then trying to harvest, right? And it's been a bumpy ride. I don't know why I don't have my dust chart up here. Oh, here it is. But you can see these swings here. Excuse me. But finally got some follow through this morning, and dust back over $12, and then it started to get into the mid 12s. Didn't want to be in a spot where it reverses, so I took some more of my 13 calls off for over 100%, and then finally was able to lock some of my November 14 strikes in for a little over 50%. The thing is, you look at dust and where it's been and where I've got the calls. I think dust was in the 10s when I got my strikes, or maybe right around 11. It's up, 15, 20% since I got them. And then the calls aren't moving up in lockstep considering the move in the underlying. So frustrating. Me, I look at dust. I'm like, if gold drops to $3,800 in the coming weeks before November expiration, dust is going to be 16, 17, $18. And you start doing the math on the strikes, the 14 calls are going to be $3, $4, right? That's a 10 bagger. To me, the premiums don't jive for that kind of move. And one half of me says, well, I wouldn't say load the boat, but be more aggressive adding some strikes. The other hand is, I'll continue to add some other further out of money strikes as we move up. I'll lock some premiums, lock some of the calls in to cover costs and some profits and continue to do that. You saw afternoon, 1279 high on dust at about 11 o'clock, dipped all the way down under 1220. It's bounced a little bit. Probably going to be a bumpy ride this week. And especially with, everything that's going on with the government shutdown, and then we have the U.S.-China talks. I don't know if any of that's going to matter too much, but I think a big threshold here of 4,000. If we don't get some kind of meaningful bounce tomorrow, you have to think it's headed to $3,800. All right, so that's dust, and then GLL. I look at the premiums on GLL, and it's the ultra short gold, so it's two times two times gold on the short side. And it was $18 back in the middle of September, and here it is at 15 and change. And I mean the premiums are, I mean, to me it looks inexpensive on a risk reward basis, at least for how I look at it. So, I don't. I want to kind of like take advantage of it while it happens, because once we do get, if and I say if, 'cause nothing's certain, but to me I think the odds are in favor of some kind of bigger pull to the downside on top of what's already happened. I think the GL calls offer a decent risk reward, and some of the December strikes. And then at some point, I'll start looking to scale out of the Novembers once those get solidly into the green. I think they're back to flat. All right, so that's GLL. Other names here, I don't want to talk too much about iRobot. Friday afternoon, I added those lotto calls as a spec name or a spec trade for a few reasons. Obviously, one of those names I've traded on and off for many years. I think is a great story. The issue is the debt situation. I talked about it on Friday. The deal when Amazon was going to acquire them, they took on a big $200 million debt deal with Carlyle, kind of like one of those deals where they never figured they were going to have to pay the interest or what have you, because the deal was going to be consummated with Amazon, and they would just have to pay the fees and what have you. But that wasn't the case. There was the breakup and what have you. So now it's kind of like Carlyle has iRobot with their foot on their neck, however imagery you want to use. But then unfortunately, so Friday was the expiration date on one of their deals. They amended it, just finally came out earlier this morning to December. So there's still the looming possibility of some other negative issues for iRobot. So you see the stock selling off. To me, it wasn't like they declared bankruptcy or whatever this morning. So it kind of just rolls everything out. I think there'll be a positive outcome. Unfortunately, the stock is not reacting. So anyway, but I locked some of those lotto calls in on Friday to cover some of the costs. Still holding some. I'll continue to hold that one. So that's iRobot. NKLR, I talked about. They have a conference on coming on Wednesday. That's getting some love here today. I think some of the other nuclear names are going. NEE. SPY's up at 685 here in a second. Just nice little candle. That's up almost near $10, up 13% here today. That's another spec name. I wouldn't call it Hero Zero because I don't think it's going to zero. I think there's an opportunity. There's going to be it's going to catch up with some more FOMO. Another name, I think the possibility of some nice multi-bags. I'll continue to hold my strikes. I added last week. GLL, Reddit. I'm trying to think of some of the other names here. Dell. SERV Robotics. I drew that trend line on this morning. Hopefully that can continue to find some footing and break out. Just disappointing that hasn't had some follow through and get back up into that 18 handle, which I think once it is able to hold that 18 for a day or two, I think it's off to the races. And I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.